Hey, it's Greyson. So Amberlynn Reid is changing her life for the better, for good now. Or is she just making stuff up to keep subscribers? What if it's neither of those? What's come to you on a thought? Amberlynn Reid responds to incentives, and that's a good thing. The people that are saying that, oh yeah, just cheering her on, then I honestly sympathize with that side more, which the other side says are more recent viewers, which is probably why I sympathize with them more, because I really only got into Amberlynn Reid maybe a month and a half ago. I'll have to see when my first video on the subject was. But the other side that's skeptical is saying, well, Amberlynn Reid just goes through these cycles over and over and over again. It's typical that this happens. I saw a binge eating disorder, looked like some sort of mental health cycle diagram related to binge eating conditions that was posted by HXMBER. That shows that this is all that her getting to this sort of phase of where she wants to be going back on diets and doing more things to help herself is just part of a cycle, and that a lot of people are just like, who cares, this isn't going to work, nothing's going to happen. There's some truth to both sides, that this could be the change for her that she needs, or that it could not be. But I want to kind of break down what exactly happened here, why it's not really faking what it actually is, and how this sort of point of inflection can be leveraged by both sides, meaning Amberlynn and her viewers, to get the best possible effect for her given the circumstances, and also some factors that would determine whether this recent change is going to be in any way dispositive of her outcome and how that would occur. So the framework we're going to want to use today to take a look at this, one of the frameworks is going to be something called game theory, which tends to be used in situations where you have a negotiation or argument, some sort of conflict between two parties here. And in this case, it's Amberlynn and the audience. And one of the things that we know from looking at this, and we know from human behavior when it comes to these sort of games and situations that we put ourselves into, is that people have a response to loss aversion, meaning like the things that you already have and that you are going to lose, versus a possible incentive. So if you have something and you're going to lose it, you're more likely to defend it than if there's something out here in the horizon that you can get, but you can only get and don't have in your possession until you do a certain set of steps. I was actually going to do a whole video kind of analyzing how if this whole theory of that Amberlynn only does things because of subscribers, which probably to a degree is actually true, just based upon basic levels of human behavior, how to position it that her subscriber base will actually go up, her revenue will go up by changing. But that's not as strong of an incentive as what happened here, what happened here was she lost a bunch of subscribers, viewership, engagement, all that kind of stuff. And that created in her, what that did is it was a credible threat that created a stress response. And this stress response basically creates a new kind of crisis. But it's a crisis that is in more of a material and malleable state rather than this sort of slow burning kind of crisis that Amberlynn has been in this entire time. And this type of situation that she is in because she's lost subscribers, it can be a very effective strategy to try to change somebody's behavior. It's known to be an effective strategy under the right circumstances. What happens here is that sort of all the things that were kind of dormant and just kind of hanging around there in our minds that haven't really been put to use. And this type of stress situation, which can happen anytime you're under threat of anything, you're under threat of loss, you're under threat that something's gonna happen to you. It's very it has very primal origins back to when humans used to have large animals, bears, stuff like that, running after them. That sense causes actions to happen very quickly and in a way that is to protect ourselves. However, the way these responses are used in each person varies greatly, and the way that they affect future events after that particular crisis really varies a lot as well. So in the Amberlynn case, the way I know that this is happening to her is she discussed when she was calling this weight loss surgery or weight loss medical clinic, that she said that, quote, something came over her when she was on the phone with them that made her want to ask for surgery, something that she didn't understand. That is an automatic stress response kind of response. And it's driven by a subconscious need for action. So she did something that she wouldn't ordinarily do, which is ask about weight loss surgery. The fact that she picked up the phone was, again, something that she wouldn't ordinarily do. And again, there's a causal chain back to this crisis event that resulted in this sort of resolution coming about. Another example, another more extreme example, there are a lot of times where there are athletes that will say that their performance is affected just by the situation of being, instead of being in practice, but being in a competition situation where they're able to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. Again, this is a stress response caused by the pressure of competition, the fact that something is on the line. I remember the Olympic snowboarder Shaun White explained that he only is able to do certain tricks when he's competing in the Olympics because of something that just comes over him, basically, that allows him to do it. And that is a stress response. And that is a positive utilization of a stress response created by threat. So the other thing that could have happened, and I'm glad did not happen, this is why I'm sort of cheering for Amberlynn Reid. The other thing that could have happened is we could also train our threat response systems to react in a way that is bad, which Amberlynn Reid has all this bad mental, I guess you can call it like mental garbage in her mind that could have just come out, and that's why people will do things when under stress that are not good for them, like eating a ton of food, acting out against other people, hurting other people, saying things you didn't want to, spending excessive amounts of money, making financial and personal decisions that you wouldn't do, quoting your right mind. But here we have some positive decisions. And that tells me that she is going to one side of the coin, which is a good thing. But the thing is that even though that response in that context is correct and you want to have this sort of positive response to threat, and a lot of people will be like, I want to have this forever. And that's kind of like an adrenaline junkie type state of you want to have this sort of positive response to threat kind of sequence going on forever and ever. And that interview, that Shaun White interview I just mentioned, he says, I wish I could just bring that up forever so you can do those kinds of things in practice or in a less pressuring situation than being in the Olympics. But that doesn't happen. If you keep being in that high of chronic stress, your body's just going to adapt to it. So you have to catalyze those events in a manner that allows you to continue the effect of them later on. And what tends to happen, unfortunately, is it tends to be an overcorrection. Like this pattern of action, things Amberlynn Reid is doing is outside of her equilibrium. And either one of two things can happen. She can crash down and go all the way back, which is what the so-called haters think will happen. Or she could start to re-regulate to equilibrium. We're all hoping that she re-regulates to equilibrium. But what determines that is what the fix is that's chosen in that context. If the fix that's chosen in that context actually lasts and you are setting yourself up and you're taking advantage of it, and you're like, okay, I'm going to set this up, I'm going to have things lined up in a way that it's automatic for me to go down this path. Like I have all the resources I need to go to in Amberlynn's case, to go to the obesity doctor. I have the appointment set, I have all the forms set, I have everything set up. And the easiest course of action, which is how we normally decide things outside of these sort of cathartic states, is to continue along this, as she terms it, weight loss journey. If she sets herself up that way, that increases her level of success. Even better if the cathartic state actually leads her to a response that corrects underlying issues. And she's setting herself up to correct underlying mental, psychological, psychosocial environments. Like, let's say this whole situation leads her to like, okay, I'm going to move out of this house and I'm going to go into an environment where I'm with somebody who's going to motivate me to lose weight. Or I'm going to go get counseling to deal with unresolved childhood trauma. That can set yourself up really well. I know this about myself. There have been times where I've gotten into arguments and things like that over my health and my bad situation where I felt so awful because I couldn't do something, and then I wind up scheduling an appointment to get some sort of treatment, and it winds up helping me out, or at least it winds up putting me in the right direction. The issue then becomes sustaining that action, putting yourself in that situation, because you can have that sort of adrenaline rush situationally, and even situationally your gain won't be that well if you're not set up. Like, if you're not prepared to compete athletically at a high level, it's unlikely that you are going to really do well just because you had an adrenaline rush in a particular situation. So now the next aspect of this, and I kind of digressed a little bit into some more fight or flight related stuff. I'm going back here a bit to game theory involving the viewers of Amberlynn Reid. Obviously, you have these viewers that have these different positions on where Amberlynn Reid is headed and how they're going to treat it. The whole action that was taken, the action that spurred all of this stuff, the credible threat that was involved, was because of a drop in subscribers that seemed to be loosely coordinated by actors within the social media space, which created the credible threat situation for her. And those actors actually did do their job. It's in game theory, you'll make a play and you'll do something strategically, seeing that there's going to be an outcome that you want to get, and if you take this action, you believe that the payoff is going to be better. And if you're coordinating actions across multiple players, then you can actually have a better chance of attaining that particular outcome. So these subscribers coordinate their actions, start to unsubscribe from a channel, and they got the response they were looking for. But now that we have Amberlynn, the situation, how do we and Amberlynn want to play this? There's this idea of maintaining more and more skepticism and saying, okay, we're going to continue to play sort of to kind of more fight, I use that term very loosely, Amberlynn Reid, and say, no, we're not going to believe you until you do X, Y, Z. You go to inpatient treatment, which I covered extensively in my other video. We're not going to trust you if you don't lose 50 pounds by next month. Things like that. Or do you want to continually acknowledge her steps in the right direction? I believe that you can get to a cooperation equilibrium here with Amberlynn, where she recognizes, okay, there's this situation going on. There is a game here. This isn't just normal equilibrium. This is not an equilibrium. So by engaging further and showing that with cooperation that things get better for her, then that positive feedback starts to build upon each other, and her mind starts to actually get conditioned to recognizing that that particular feedback, and both sides get a good outcome. Instead of just having this terrible situation with Amberlynn Reid and Amberlynn deteriorating and viewers getting content they don't want, in the cooperation equilibrium, viewers are getting content that they want, and Amberlynn is improving her life. But to stay in that cooperation equilibrium, you obviously have to cooperate, and you can't make it seem like the cooperation is going to end at a specific point. You have to make it continual, so it appears that there's incentive for both parties to continue to cooperate and to continue to forego the gains, which in this case were mostly emotional on the viewer side, of fighting back more in this given context. And then there's a little bit of extra nuance here of you want to be encouraging the right things within that cooperation equilibrium. The actions that will be small enough that the party feels like they can trust what's going on, they can do what is being suggested in cooperation, but that are also effective toward the objective. So you can't make the cooperation equilibrium, rush yourself into an inpatient treatment facility right away, get to gastric bypass tomorrow. You can't really go full throttle in terms of the long-term cooperation equilibrium. You can do that at the initial part where you're creating that adrenaline rushing. You should, but you don't do that when you're trying to maintain the subsequent cooperation equilibrium. And obviously, the viewers can regulate what they're saying, their feedback, their responses through the likes. The like-dislike ratio has been something that I've heard talked a lot about that's getting better for Amberlynn by subscribing and then by stating in comments what they like or don't like, which I'm getting a lot happier about the comments in the Amberlynn Reid videos, and it does seem to definitely be positive. But there should be a focus on these incremental steps showing cooperation and sort of showing her way to cooperation if she's responding to that information, which it certainly appears she is. All right, so just a little bit of a behavioral breakdown of sort of the events of what happened with Amberlynn Reid over the past couple weeks with this loss of subscribers and her new response. If she turns this into a type of action that is not just this short-term action of, I'm losing subscribers, let me go get on a diet, let me just start weighing myself, the same course of action that has been unsuccessful in the past, and she changes that to, okay, I'm going to get some help for my mental health issues, I'm going to take actual serious action that is going to promote a longer-term cooperation equilibrium, and the audience acknowledges that and says, yes, Amberlynn, we're so glad you went to therapy. Yes, Amberlynn, we're so glad you did this. And that those particular steps are being acknowledged, then Amberlynn could be well on her way to a better life. It's not going to be without bumps. It's not going to be without problems. But I could see this possibly working as long as things are in the right direction, which is not necessarily the diet direction, not necessarily the direct weight loss direction, but promoting that long-term outcome. All right. Go ahead and if you like what you heard, hit the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe. I do have a contest going on my personal vlogs, and it's something called the Amberlynn Reid scale, where you rate me on a scale. I'm sorry, I didn't update it. 0 to 560. 0 meaning this video is very much like 0 meaning this video is not all like Amberlynn Reid. 560 is like this video is totally like Amberlynn Reid. And that's only on personal vlogs that I'm going to post into a playlist. I'm going to link in the description, and then on each of those there is a entry form link, and you can actually enter to win $25 at the end of the quarter. You get an entry for each video you view and you rate on the Amberlynn Reid scale. So if you want to win a little extra something for watching, then take a look at that. All right. Thank you so much, and I wish Amberlynn Reid the best of luck in all of this.